Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
A drone flew into Mels Hole and captured terrifying footage that you can't believe. Deep in eastern Washington, Mels Hole is a seemingly bottomless abyss filled with creepy secrets. A neighbor threw his dead dog into the hole, but the same dog reappeared days later, alive but different. Soon after, government agents closed off the area and helicopters flew overhead to keep people away. Tune in to find out whether or not magic exists, the abyss that baffled Washington. In the rural stretches of eastern Washington, hidden among the rolling hills, there's a place that seems plucked straight out of a horror movie, Mels Hole. It's not just any pit in the ground. This one's got secrets. First discovered by Mel Waters, a local resident, it's an endless abyss that's baffled everyone who's ever heard of it, let alone tried to get close. And within its depths lies something that was never meant to be found. This mysterious chasm is surrounded by enough conspiracy theories to keep a tinfoil hat company in business forever. We're talking paranormal activity, government cover-ups, strange scientific phenomena. You name it, this pit has it. And sure, it's easy to scoff at the wild stories about this sinkhole, but let's face it, people love a good mystery, and this one might just top them all. Nestled west of Ellensburg, right on Manastash Ridge, the crevice might have looked ordinary at first, roughly 9 feet across, with a wall of stones that dropped about 15 feet before the darkness swallowed everything. To the untrained eye, it's just a wide-open well, a trash pit even. Mel himself and others in the neighborhood used it as a place to dump old junk, you know, broken appliances, worn-out tires, whatever else was taking up space. It's not like it was doing anyone any harm, right? Except there was one thing that was weird, even for a simple dumping ground. No matter how much junk they tossed in, it never seemed to fill up, just kept swallowing everything like a greedy beast. The local wildlife seemed to know something was off too. Mel's dogs avoided the cavity like it was some sort of canine ghost story. No barking, no sniffing around it, nothing. In fact, they dig in their heels to stay away, almost like they sensed some invisible danger that humans just couldn't pick up on. And it's not just the dogs. There's an eerie silence near the hole. No birds, no insects. Even Mel noticed his radio would act up near the pit, buzzing and crackling like it was trying to tune into some strange frequency. Spooky enough yet? Mel's curiosity got the better of him, as it always does in these kinds of stories. Being the fisherman he was, he figured he'd use what he had on hand, his fishing gear, to see just how deep this thing went. Tying a 1-pound weight to his line, he began to lower it down into the darkness. He went on and on, unspooling thousands of feet of line until he reached 4,500 feet. Still no bottom. It's like the chasm was taunting him, daring him to try harder. Mel did what any sensible person would do. He added more line. He even attached a pack of lifesavers to see if there was any water down there. But when he reeled it back up, they were dry as a bone. Mel kept going, pushing his curiosity to absurd levels. He eventually lowered a staggering 880,000 feet of line. That's over 166 miles. Just think about that for a second. He's practically spooled enough line to stretch through multiple towns, and yet the bottom remained elusive. Still, no end in sight. The pit was like a greedy monster, swallowing everything and giving nothing back. Then came the first real shocker. One of Mel's neighbors, distraught after losing his dog, decided to throw the poor creature's body into the abyss. Sad? Yes. Disturbing? Also yes. But what's truly unsettling is what happened next. A few days later, that very same dog, complete with its familiar collar, was spotted running through the woods. It was alive, but seemed almost like it didn't recognize its owner, as if it had crossed into some alternate dimension and back. It's hard to explain, and even harder to believe, but the neighbor swore up and down that it was his dog. And let's be real, something like that sticks with a person. By 1997, Mel decided it was time to share his findings with the world. And where better to do that than on Coast to Coast AM, the famed late-night radio show hosted by Art Bell? The show, known for exploring everything from UFOs to the paranormal, was the perfect platform. Mel's story captivated listeners worldwide, And the more Mel talked, the more bizarre the tale grew. People called in, offering suggestions like using lasers to measure the depth or trying radar to penetrate the darkness. But there was one unfortunate side effect of all this attention. His secret wasn't a secret anymore. Soon after that fateful radio appearance, Mel returned home only to find himself staring down a full-blown government roadblock. Helicopters hovered above his property, and military vehicles blocked his way. They fed him some line about a plane crash, but there was no wreckage, no flames. Nothing that suggested a crash had happened. When Mel tried to argue, they made it clear. His land was no longer his. They hinted at finding ways to discredit him, to ruin him. They didn't want him near that abyss, and they sure didn't want anyone else to know what was down there. In a twist that practically screams cover-up, Mel was told in no uncertain terms to leave his property. He was threatened with accusations of harboring illegal activities. And when he threatened to go to the media, they just laughed at him. They knew no one would believe a guy talking about a bottomless pit, government conspiracies, and resurrected dogs. And maybe they were right. To most people, this mystery sounded like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, and then things got even weirder. A few days later, Mel heard from a neighbor that something even stranger had happened. A beam of pure darkness had apparently shot up from the cavity, straight into the sky, piercing the clouds. It wasn't just an absence of light, it was like a tangible thing, something almost physical in its darkness. Mel hadn't seen it himself, but the story was enough to make him think twice about what he was dealing with. As Mel disappeared and the government intervened, the mystery of the abyss grew, leaving many curious about hidden secrets. The Nevada Dark Connection. Theories about Mels Hole began to pour in. Some people thought it was connected to ley lines, those supposed energy pathways that crisscross the Earth. Others figured it was some kind of interdimensional gateway, maybe even to another time or another world. People tossed out ideas about the Hollow Earth theory, an old concept suggesting our planet had a whole other world inside it. Everyone had a different idea, but one thing was clear. No one had a clue what was really down there. Then in a classic move straight out of a conspiracy thriller, Mel vanished. He dropped off the radar completely, leaving his story unfinished and the world to wonder what had happened to him. A television crew even went to Ellensburg to try and find the pit, but by then it was gone, hidden away, most likely by the military. They found evidence of military activity, but no opening. It was as if the Earth had swallowed it back up, erasing any sign it had ever existed. Years passed, and eventually he resurfaced, this time with an even stranger tale. He claimed that someone had offered him a huge sum of money, $3 million a year, to just leave the United States and keep his mouth shut. The catch? He couldn't talk about the chasm, and he had to disappear immediately. He took the deal, moving to Australia for a while, but he couldn't stay away forever. The mystery called him back. Returning to the United States wasn't exactly a smooth move for him. On a bus ride to see his nephew, he blacked out, losing 12 days of his life. He woke up in San Francisco, missing teeth, covered in needle marks, and completely disoriented. His wallet was gone, his arm hurt, and he had no idea what had happened to him. It was like someone had hit the reset button on his life, and he was left to pick up the pieces. To make matters worse, he lost everything. His property, his money, everything he owned. The government had taken it all, and despite all the setbacks, he still wanted to share his story. But every time he tried, something else would happen to silence him. His bank account drained, his health deteriorated, and no one seemed to believe him. Still, he persisted, calling into Art Bell's show to share what he could. His saga took yet another turn when a Native American tribe from Nevada reached out to him. They had their own mysterious pit, one that they believed was connected to his. They brought him to see it, and what he found was just as bizarre as the original opening, if not more so. This one was lined with a strange metal, and when they conducted experiments, the results were nothing short of mind-boggling. Ice lowered into the pit would come back up transformed, dry as a bone, and capable of burning for months without melting. It was as if the laws of physics just didn't apply. The strangest part of this second cavity came when they decided to lower a sheep into it. The animal seemed to sense something was wrong, struggling violently, but they did it anyway. When they brought the sheep back up, it was dead, and inside its body, they found a bizarre tumor. Inside that tumor was something even stranger, a creature that looked like a baby seal, but with human-like eyes. It was alive, and it seemed to want to go back to the pit, which it eventually did, leaving everyone stunned and more confused than ever. And then, as if by some miracle, he found himself cured of his terminal cancer. He believed that his encounter with the seal-like creature had somehow healed him. It was just one more inexplicable event in a long list of bizarre occurrences surrounding the abyss. By the time he made his final appearance on Art Bell's show, the message was clear. Stay away from the cavity. Whatever was down there, whatever forces were at work, they were beyond human understanding, and messing with them came with consequences. In the years that followed, this infamous hole became something of a legend. People tried to find it, tried to prove it was real, but the evidence was always lacking. Satellite images showed blacked out areas, but nothing concrete. People claimed to have found the void, but it always turned out to be a simple well. He himself remained an enigma, with no records of his existence ever found. Some believed he had simply made the whole thing up, that it was an elaborate hoax, but others weren't so sure. The lack of photos or physical evidence was suspicious, sure, but he had never tried to profit off the story. He never sold merchandise, never tried to cash in on his fame, and despite all the skepticism, he stuck to his story for years, never once wavering. Even Art Bell, who was known for his love of the strange and unexplainable, seemed to have his doubts. But the story of this bottomless mystery was too good to pass up. It was the kind of tale that captured the imagination, that made people wonder what else might be out there, lurking just beyond the edges of our understanding. In 2017, a group of amateur investigators decided to take up the mantle. They gathered their gear and set off to find the abyss once and for all. They ended up at a farm, staring down into what seemed like an endless void. They tossed rocks in, listened for the sound of them hitting the bottom, but heard nothing. It was as if the pit just swallowed everything whole, refusing to give up its secrets. And as they stood there, they realized they weren't alone. Someone, or something, was watching them. It added an eerie layer to an already unsettling situation. They captured everything on film, but before they could make sense of it, they felt an overwhelming urge to leave. They never got the answers they were looking for, and maybe that's for the best. With Mels Hole becoming a legend, focus shifted to other strange places where nature defied explanation. Myths, jinn, and snakes. It turns out there are plenty of holes out there inspiring the same kind of eyebrow-raising theories. Let's talk about one called the Well of Bar-Hout, or as locals like to call it, the Well of Hell. This one has some seriously spooky vibes just from the name alone. This deep, gaping sinkhole is located in Yemen, in a region that's not exactly known for its tourist attractions. The Well of Bar-Hout is one of those places that has been shrouded in mystery for ages. A perfect recipe for all kinds of wild stories. Think of it as a natural hole in the ground that's equal parts creepy and fascinating, with a splash of nobody's quite sure what's going on down there. Perfect. Let's break down the basics. The entrance to this thing is about 30 meters across, which is almost 100 feet for those keeping count. As for depth, it's a neat 112 meters, or 367 feet. Imagine standing at the edge, looking down, and realizing it's deeper than a football field is long. It's a serious drop. The opening is like a giant black circle in the desert, practically begging for people to toss in their worst fears and imagine what might crawl back out. The structure of the Well of Hell itself is almost like nature saying, "You want creepy? I'll give you creepy." The pit is divided into layers, because of course, it's got layers like some twisted geological cake. The top layer is this porous, hole-filled rock, about 60 meters thick. It's perfect for letting water trickle down, almost like it's feeding whatever's hiding below. Then there's a second layer, which is much less willing to let anything through, meaning all that water from above ends up spilling through as waterfalls. 4 of them, each about 45 meters high. They cascade into the darkness below, making the place look like some hidden grotto meant for a villain's lair. Up until pretty recently, nobody really knew what was down there. The Well of Hell was pretty much left alone, partly because of local superstitions and partly because, Well, it's not exactly easy to get into a giant pit in the middle of the desert. Most folks just gave it a wide berth and left it to the imagination, which only made the stories grow wilder. People said that the Well of Barhut was a prison for jinn, those mythical trickster spirits from Arabian lore. Others claimed that objects, or even people, that got too close could be sucked in, never to be seen again. It's basically a black hole for the superstitious mind. But then, of course, some explorers just couldn't resist taking a closer look. In September of 2021, a team from Oman decided it was time to go spelunking in Yemen's darkest legend. They were probably thinking, why let some silly myths get in the way of a good descent? Armed with ropes, cameras, and whatever bravery or foolishness it takes to get lowered into a giant, probably haunted pit, they went all the way to the bottom. What did they find? Not quite the portal to hell, but still some interesting stuff. It turns out the Well of Hell is home to a bunch of cave formations. There are stalagmites, those pointy rock columns that look like they're just waiting to impale someone in a horror movie, and cave pearls, which are basically shiny, rounded rocks formed by dripping water. These come in lovely shades of gray and green, adding a little touch of color to an otherwise dark, forbidding place. And let's not forget the wildlife, because no mysterious hole would be complete without a few creepy crawlies, right? They found snakes down there, because of course there were snakes, along with the remains of animals that had fallen in and, well, never found their way out. Not exactly a welcoming committee. Naturally, the exploration team collected samples of rocks, soil, water, and anything else they could get their hands on. Scientists love a good hole-in-the-ground mystery, especially if they get to be the ones who figure out how it came to be. And there's definitely some scientific interest here. This pit is a prime example of a karst landscape, which is basically what happens when rock dissolves over a long time, leaving holes, caverns, and other strange formations. The Well of Barhut also provides insight into subterranean ecosystems, the kind where snakes and unfortunate critters find themselves stuck in a natural nightmare. But let's not pretend that the real draw of the Well of Hell is its geological significance. Sure, scientists might care about the rock layers and the groundwater flow, but for everyone else, it's the folklore that makes this place interesting. The idea that there might be some kind of supernatural element at play, that's what keeps people intrigued. A deep, dark pit with a name like the Well of Hell practically demands that people let their imaginations run wild. And it's not like the stories are going away anytime soon. No matter how many explorers rappel down and declare there's nothing but stalagmites and dead animals down there, people will keep spinning tales about jinn and cursed holes. After all, the Well of Barhut's got everything a good legend needs: mystery, danger, the possibility of supernatural beings, and just enough isolation to keep things murky. It's like Mels Hole all over again. Just another weird, seemingly bottomless pit that humans can't resist mythologizing. There's something about the unknown that gets us every time, isn't there? We see a dark, forbidding hole, and instead of thinking, wow, that's a neat geological formation, we think, what if there's a monster down there? Or a portal to another dimension? And honestly, it's probably better that way. The world's got enough dry facts. Sometimes we need a little mystery, a little thrill of fear. We need a Well of Hell or a Mels Hole to keep us wondering what might be lurking in the dark corners of the earth.
Washington's strange abyss. In 2017, a group decided to explore the strange pit. They lowered a camera into it, hoping to uncover its secrets. What they found was unbelievable and caught the attention of people worldwide. What could be at the bottom of this pit? We aim to find out the mysteries of Mels Hole and reveal the surprising truths hidden by its darkness. Mels Hole is a round pit, exactly 9 feet and 9 inches wide, surrounded by a ring of stones. It goes down about 15 feet before disappearing into darkness. The fascination grew when Mel and his wife, curious about the hole, started throwing things into it. They soon realized their neighbors had been using it as a dump for unwanted items for a long time. Strangely, despite all the things thrown into it, there was no sound when they hit the bottom, no echo at all. This suggested the hole was incredibly deep. Mel felt a strong need to investigate further. His main goal was to find out if this seemingly endless pit had a bottom. But the big question everyone had was, how deep is this hole? This mystery deepened when Mel, an avid fisherman, used his fishing gear in a creative way. He tied a 1-pound weight to a fishing line and lowered it into the hole, hoping to measure its depth. To his surprise, the line went down 4,500 feet, the full length of his reel, without hitting the bottom, leaving Mel puzzled but eager to continue. When he pulled the weight back up, it was completely dry, suggesting it had not hit any water. Mel then tried a different experiment. He attached a roll of lifesavers to the line, thinking they would dissolve if they touched water. But like the weight, the lifesavers came back dry, adding to the mystery. Mel wasn't ready to give up. He added more fishing lines, reaching deeper into the pit. Even after letting out lines down to 10,000 feet, there was still no sign of the bottom. Driven by his endless curiosity, Mel kept going, eventually sending down lines that stretched approximately 80,000 feet without finding the end. This persistent quest showed his unshakable determination to discover if Mels Hole had a bottom, or if its depths were truly limitless. After years of trying, Mel's big investment of 80,000 feet of fishing line, about 15 miles, didn't solve the mystery of the bottomless pit. Every time he tried to measure its depth, he came up empty-handed. It seemed all his effort was for nothing. The pit remained a mystery. During his attempts, Mel noticed something strange. Whenever Mel went near the deep dark hole, his dogs acted weird. They avoided the area and wouldn't go near it, as if they sensed something bad. Even more interesting, there was no wildlife around the hole. Only a few birds were seen now and then. No insects buzzed, no small animals scurried nearby. Just an eerie silence. This made Mel even more curious, so he talked to his neighbors about it. To Mel's surprise, his neighbors said their pets behaved the same way. All the local dogs avoided the hole, sensing something odd. The stories about the hole became scarier as time went on, and the hole itself seemed to become more mysterious the more Mel looked into it. Night falls and a strange tale begins to unfold. The phantom dog. One neighbor had a particularly creepy story. Instead of burying his dead dog, he dropped it into the mysterious pit, as some locals did with unwanted items. A few days later, during a walk, he saw an animal that looked just like his deceased dog at the edge of the woods. On closer look, he saw it was wearing the same collar. When he called out, the dog seemed confused and didn't recognize him. This strange sight led to wild speculation. Had the dog come back from another realm? Was the hole a portal to another dimension? These were just some of the ideas people had as they tried to make sense of what was happening. With more rumors and bizarre stories spreading, Mel had more questions than answers. Determined to understand, he knew he needed more help. In 1997, with no other options, Mel turned to the famous radio show, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. This show, broadcast across the American Southwest, connected millions of people interested in strange and unexplained events. On February 21, 1997, Mel took a big step and contacted Art Bell. He prepared a detailed account of his experiences, from trying to measure the hole's depth to the odd silence when he threw an old refrigerator into it with his wife. His message wasn't just an update. It was a well-told story meant to grab attention. Soon after sending it, Art Bell responded, and Mel's eerie discovery caught global attention, sparking widespread curiosity and fear. Mel found himself in the spotlight, appearing on various talk shows where he shared the mysterious events happening beneath the Earth's surface. This bold revelation had mixed effects. On the plus side, Mel got lots of advice from people fascinated by his discovery. They suggested new ideas, like using lasers to measure the depth or radar for a better look. These fresh ideas gave Mel new solutions he hadn't thought of before. But with every good thing comes a downside. As Mel's story spread from his radio talks, people all over the world became aware of this strange hole, sparking curiosity and concern. The sudden attention brought unwanted questions about where the hole came from and what it could mean. During his broadcasts, Mel hinted at the hole's location, which led to unexpected and exciting turns in his life. Just a day after Mel shared everything on the radio, he came home to a surprise. The U.S. military had taken an interest. Helicopters hovered over his property, making the scene look like a movie, all because of a radio show mention. As time went on, the curiosity about the hole only grew. Officials and everyday people were eager to see this strange phenomenon. Mel noticed that the hole had a strange effect on its surroundings. Animals stayed away as if sensing danger, while plants nearby grew unusually well. Radios brought close to the hole acted weird, filled with static as if disturbed by invisible forces. Despite trying to tune it, the radio often resisted, sometimes catching bits of broadcasts from another dimension amidst the static. One day, as Mel listened to his radio, it suddenly played music from a long time ago, transporting him with its haunting tunes. When he tried to change the station, he stumbled upon a baseball game. At first, he thought it was just random interference, but then he realized it wasn't a live broadcast. It was a game from decades ago, echoing from the past. The more Mel looked into these strange events, the more confusing and amazing they became. Even scientists were puzzled by what was happening near the hole, leaving Mel and everyone else to wonder about all the unexplained activities it caused. Night deepens the mystery and the chaos around the mysterious hole, a town's silent witness. What other events were triggered by this mysterious hole? Could Mel ever truly understand what lay within its depths? As we think back to that crucial night when Art and Mel discussed their theories, the mystery kept unfolding, layer by intriguing layer. After saying goodbye to Art, Mel went back home and found his neighborhood looking like a military base. Soldiers stood with their weapons ready, and heavy machines were being moved around. Curious about the chaos, Mel went to ask what was going on. The soldiers told him that a plane had crashed on his property. But Mel and his neighbors hadn't seen any smoke or fire, which usually happens with plane crashes. This made them suspicious. Mel, who had first reported the strange hole on his land, was now being kept away from it. The military said they needed to investigate the crash. Whenever Mel tried to talk to someone in charge, he was stopped by a man in plain clothes. This man hinted that Mel could lose his land rights. He even threatened to frame Mel for running a drug operation if he didn't stay quiet. Mel, refusing to be intimidated, threatened to expose them to the media. The man just laughed, thinking no one would believe Mel's story. What he didn't know was that Mel had already talked about the strange hole with Art Bell and his large radio audience. A few days later, Art called Mel for an update. Mel shared more strange news, saying a neighbor had seen a dark beam shoot up from the hole and into the clouds. Mel himself hadn't seen this. Art Bell, a famous radio host, and other curious people started to piece together the strange history of this area in Washington state. It was known for weird disappearances and events that didn't seem to follow natural laws. Locals told stories of ghostly appearances and odd happenings, adding more mystery to the area's reputation. Conversations on Art Bell's show sparked many theories about the hole. Some listeners thought it was on a ley line, suggesting it might be a portal to another dimension or a gateway through time. Others believed it could be an underground tunnel going deep into the earth, like a subway system. Despite these theories, no one had any solid proof. Determined to find the truth, Art Bell decided to visit the property himself. Like Mel, he was denied access to the hole. But Art wasn't discouraged. He planned to talk to local residents, hoping their stories would reveal more about the hole's secrets. This only made everyone more determined to uncover the truth behind the strange events happening around this mysterious spot. Exploring the mystery of the hole seemed like the best thing to do next. While investigating, an elderly neighbor mentioned something interesting about the hole's past. The area used to have stone columns around it, hinting at a significant history. This discovery made everyone even more curious, suggesting there was much more to learn. But even with this interesting clue, digging deeper didn't reveal any major findings. However, when Mel talked about the strange hole on a radio show, listeners became very interested and wanted to help solve the mystery. Some people were very much against Mel's investigation, worried that the government might start watching them. Their fears were true because the government was indeed watching and stepped in before Mel could get back home. After the show, Mel promised to keep everyone updated about the hole. But when it was time for an update, Mel was nowhere to be found. Many tried to reach him at home, but there was no answer, making everyone worried. Concerned for his safety, a TV crew decided to go to Ellensburg to find out what happened to Mel. Morning brings new clues and deeper secrets. The silence and the secrets. When they arrived, they saw no sign of the hole Mel had described. Instead, there was a strange silence, broken only by the wind rustling through the trees. While looking around, the crew found a pile of documents scattered nearby. These weren't just any papers. They were military blueprints, maps, and intelligence reports, all pointing to a secret military operation. Realizing what they had found was serious, They pieced together clues from satellite images and encrypted messages about a top-secret mission. It turned out that Mel's involvement in this mystery was deeper than anyone thought. 3 years after he disappeared, it was revealed that government agents had offered Mel $3 million a year to lease his property, but he had to keep it a secret and leave the country immediately. Mel accepted the deal and moved to Australia. Though he agreed to stay silent, the pain of leaving his family, his wife and kids, became too much. After 2 years, he decided to make a risky return to the US because he missed his family so much. During this secret visit, driven by love and desperation, Mel reached out to Art, leading to significant consequences. During their chat, he trusted Art Bell enough to reveal his plans to tell his story on the radio. When it was time for him to go on air, he mysteriously didn't show up, leaving everyone puzzled. Mel remembered that on the day he was supposed to appear on the radio, he was boarding a bus to visit his nephew. Suddenly, a heated argument broke out during the ride, and the police had to get involved. After the situation was handled, all the passengers were transferred to another bus. Just as Mel settled into the new bus, he fainted and lost consciousness. When Mel woke up, he found himself in San Francisco, confused and without any memory of the past 12 days. Even more puzzling, he was on an unfamiliar path, missing his wallet and keys. His arm hurt a lot, and when he looked at it, he saw needle marks and tape residues, hinting at some kind of medical treatment while he was unconscious. As he tried to gather his thoughts, he noticed a metallic taste of blood in his mouth. When he checked his mouth, he was shocked to find that his back teeth were missing. Instead of recovering, his life got even more chaotic. Before he could get back on track, he was caught up in legal troubles. He was accused of unauthorized construction, tampering with power lines, and more. Mel defended himself, saying that he had been abroad for 2 years, and during that time, the government had taken over his property. Despite his defense, he lost everything in the legal battles that followed. Just days after he hinted to his friend Art about revealing some shocking news, his bank account was mysteriously emptied. It seemed like a clear warning from unseen enemies to stay quiet or face serious consequences. Despite these threats, Mel's incredible story couldn't be silenced. Skeptics said he made it all up, but the interest in his story only grew. Art Bell, known for his compelling broadcasts, decided to let Mel share his story, giving it more attention. Meanwhile, a TV crew secretly went to the area Mel described, but came back without any solid proof. Reports of unusual military operations nearby hinted at a deeper, hidden agenda. The expansion of a no-fly zone over the area made people even more suspicious and fueled ongoing debates. The search for answers continues, leading us deeper into mystery. The silence of Nevada's bottomless pit. In a time when detailed satellite images were hard to get, the Terra server, an early mapping service before Google Earth, showed strange blanked-out areas that supported Mel's claims. These map anomalies raised more questions about what might be hidden in those blanked-out regions. This chain of strange events and hidden agendas set the stage for an exciting search for the truth, challenging efforts to hide it beneath layers of secrets and intrigue. Despite more people starting to believe Mel, some doubted him. They thought Mel might have stumbled upon the hidden part of the map by chance and made up his whole story from there. But this doubt weakened when they realized that Terra Server, the tool they thought he used, wasn't even around when Mel first talked about the hole. Just when it seemed like all questions were answered, something new happened that made things even more interesting. The Bosque Hole got everyone's attention when a Native American tribe reached out to Mel and invited him to Nevada. They wanted his help with a deep, bottomless pit that looked just like the one Mel had talked about. Mel and the tribe went to the site. He didn't go down into the hole, but his visit sparked lots of conversations among the Native Americans, the Bosque community, and about the mysterious pit itself. They were careful, making sure Mel wasn't connected to any media or government agencies like CNN, the FBI, or the CIA, which often snoop around where they're not wanted. Once they trusted him, Mel finally got to see the hole, making everyone more curious about what might be hidden inside. This hole wasn't on reservation land, but on land owned by the Bosques, a unique group with roots tracing back to areas between France and Spain. The Bosques had moved to the United States in the 1800s and settled in Nevada, mainly using the land for sheep grazing. Stories passed down through their families claimed this hole had been there for over 2 centuries and was sacred. Unlike the first hole Mel found, this one had a strange metallic lining that seemed to go on forever when you looked into it. The hole also gave off a warm energy, making the surrounding area unusually warm. One strange thing happened when Mel accidentally dropped a tool against the metal lining. It made no sound. The silence was eerie, as if the metal absorbed all noise, leaving a creepy stillness. Driven by curiosity, Mel and the Bosque community started experimenting with the hole. They first lowered a bucket filled with ice into the depths, keeping some ice at the surface for comparison. Amazingly, while the surface ice melted, the ice from the hole stayed solid, felt dry, and had a salty texture. They were even more intrigued when they tried to melt this ice over a flame, and it caught fire and burned for a long time. What do you think of these strange discoveries from Mels Hole? Could they point to unknown natural phenomena or perhaps something more supernatural? Share your thoughts, and if this story caught your interest, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more one.